What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Greenville Living Experience. Today's video is all about Greenville, South Carolina versus Charleston, South Carolina. And this is the age-old question and more commonly referred to, I guess, as the mountains versus the beach, which is better. And at the end of the day, a lot of that does depend on your personal preference, but we're going to go through everything from overall cost of living, job market, housing income, and all of the fun things that tell us a little bit more about the nitty-gritty details about which city might be a better fit for you. So starting out, we're going to talk about the overall cost of living in Greenville versus Charleston. So specifically, I'm going to throw up some graphics on the screen here, and you're going to see a bunch of numbers. And just as a benchmark for you, if you're seeing numbers that are less than 100, that means you are below the national average. If they are above 100, then they are above the national average. So overall cost of living score, you can see that Greenville is quite a bit lower than Charleston. We are actually under the national average, while Charleston is above as far as your average overall cost of living goes for the two cities. And as you can see, we actually fall below the national average in pretty much every single category, whereas Charleston definitely has a couple benchmarks like your food and groceries, your overall costs, and your housing costs specifically that are well above the national average. So let's dive in a little bit deeper into some of these numbers, and we're actually going to start off with housing specifically. So overall, you've seen that Charleston is well above the national average for housing costs, while Greenville is still under it, but we're pretty close to being what you're seeing across the board in the United States. Now, if you are looking to rent in the Greenville area, your average rent's going to be pretty much close to the 1,500 mark, whereas Charleston, you're going to look closer to the 2,200 mark for your average rent. And a lot of those are probably going to be higher if you're looking more into housing versus apartments. Your apartments are obviously going to be a little bit cheaper than if you need to rent an entire house. Now, talking specifically about housing and buying houses, then obviously you're going to see that Greenville is still cheaper to buy here and live here than Charleston. Again, that's nothing new compared to what you've seen on the overall scores. The median home cost for Greenville is right around that $360,000 mark, whereas in Charleston you're seeing closer to the $494,000 mark. So you're well above $100,000 more in home costs just to buy and purchase a home in Charleston than you are in Greenville. Home appreciation rates for both places are pretty equivalent, except when you see the 10-year mark, you'll see that Charleston skyrockets a little bit above Greenville, but throughout the years, they're pretty similar as far as that goes. Now, obviously, we got to talk about climate because that's the big one. Even though Greenville is not technically the mountains, we are pretty close. We're pretty much at the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I'm going to qualify as Greenville as more mountainous areas versus Charleston is obviously very beach heavy. So when it comes to overall climate, you're going to see that Greenville and Charleston are actually pretty similar in a lot of categories. You know, rainfall, we experience just a little bit more rainy days here. Now, obviously in Greenville, we do get the slight chance that it will snow here. Of course, as of me filming this video, it's not snowed here in like 3 years. So we don't have snow very often here, but we do at least have a chance. Whereas Charleston, you know, you're at the beach, snow is a pretty rare occurrence there. But as far as precipitation, sunny days go, your average highs and lows for the year, all of those are pretty equivalent when you look at the two cities. Now, obviously, when we're talking about climate, we can't not talk about natural disasters. Specifically, if you're going to be in Charleston at the beach, then you're going to see tropical storms, hurricanes, and flooding, which we kind of get the after effects of those here in Greenville, but not nearly to the extent that Charleston does, and we will not experience as much flooding as Charleston does, and sometimes we get lucky that it breezes right past us even if it does hit Charleston. So keep that in mind, that obviously if you're going to live at the beach, you're going to experience beach weather, and that does include the hurricane season. So you really can't go wrong either place, I feel like, because they're pretty comparable. I would just say that Charleston is obviously going to be a little bit more humid and sticky versus Greenville, but you're not going to escape it because Greenville is still going to be humid and sticky as well. Now, looking at your overall economy, specifically the job market, you'll notice that we have just slightly a little bit more unemployment here in the area for Greenville, but with the same amount of job growth, and we actually outrank Charleston by just a hair for future job growth. So again, as far as looking for jobs, keeping jobs, and future job outlook for the two cities, again, very comparable. Now, the difference that comes into play is obviously for your household incomes. So in Greenville, your median household income is closer to the $60,000 mark, whereas in Charleston, you're closer to the $75,000. And for your family median income, which typically consists of at least 2 household members, then you're looking closer to the $97,000 to $100,000 mark for Greenville, and a little bit over that $100,000 mark for Charleston. So, and that probably goes into play with, of course, the cost of living is higher in Charleston, so your salaries and your income are going to be a little bit more in Charleston than you're going to find here in Greenville. But when you factor in the overall costs, then it pretty much evens out regardless of which one you're going to look at. I would say if you are considering the two areas, I would consider for your job, are you working from home? What does transportation look like? Charleston's going to have a little bit heavier of traffic than Greenville is, so what does your commute time look like? Obviously salary goes into play, but $100,000 salary in Greenville is a very different case than $100,000 salary in Charleston. That Greenville salary is going to get you a little bit further than the one in Charleston will. So those are all things that you should weigh and consider when you're looking at job offers if you're applying in both cities. So overall, you can kind of see that Greenville and Charleston are pretty comparable in a lot of areas. Mainly, Charleston is more expensive when it comes to food and housing costs, which greatly increases their cost of living there, versus here in Greenville, it is a little bit cheaper. I would say we have a little bit better weather here in Greenville. We don't obviously have to deal with natural disasters and things, but we don't have the beach. So if you're a big beach person, then that might outweigh that for you. And also, you know, Charleston is a very historically rich city. Obviously, the Civil War was started in Charleston and Fort Sumter, so there are a lot of war sites and museums there that you can visit in Charleston. So if you're a big history buff, then Charleston would be a great place to be if you want to be immersed in that world. But overall, I would say it's kind of just your personal preference. They're, like I said, overall pretty comparable. Obviously, if you want cheaper housing and things, Greenville is the better place to be. But if you can't decide, then don't worry about it too much, because the great thing is that Greenville's only about 3.5 hours to Charleston. So you're really not that far, and it's a quick weekend trip away. If you wanted to go to Charleston, or if you were in Charleston and wanted to come to Greenville, you still have the option of easy convenience to go to either place. So it's not like we're super far apart, whereas like in North Carolina, the mountains to the sea takes about 6 hours versus 3. So we're pretty much cutting that time in half. So you're still convenient to both places and getting to both places. And I really don't think you could go wrong either way. For me personally, I love the beach, I really do. But Greenville is home for me and I really love it. And I just don't think I could live at the beach, at least not at this point in my life. I might change that a little later, but I really do love Greenville and I love being here. And for me, Greenville takes the cake. Let me know down in the comments below which city you prefer, whether it's Greenville or Charleston, and why you prefer that city. And just remember, if you are looking to move to either area, I can help you. I do specifically work in Greenville, but I can connect you with agents in Charleston. If you're looking to buy in Charleston instead, I would be happy to help you and your family on your home journeys. Just go to the description box below and click the link to fill out to work with me, and we'll get started on your home journey today. And I appreciate you guys sticking around with me in today's video. I hope you learned a lot about both cities and you finally decided which city would work best for you and your family.